Welcome to Essentially Soulful. I'm Betty. Today we're diving into something truly magical, the ancient connection between sacred trees, divine feminine energy, and how these traditions live on in modern spiritual practices. I'm here with DeeAnna, and she's going to weave a bit of intuitive aromatherapy into this topic.
Thank you, Betty. I'm excited to share these beautiful traditions and their modern applications with our listeners.
You know, when I think about trees, there's something so profound about their presence, reaching deep into the earth while stretching toward the heavens. But this connection goes far beyond just poetic imagery, doesn't it?
Absolutely, Betty. Trees have been revered as sacred beings across cultures for millennia. One of the most powerful examples of this is found in the story of Asherah, the great mother goddess who was deeply connected to sacred trees in ancient Hebrew traditions.
That's fascinating. Could you tell us more about Asherah and her connection to trees? I think many listeners might be surprised to hear about a goddess figure in Hebrew traditions.
Well, what's really interesting is that Asherah was actually considered the wife of the Hebrew god and was seen as the mother goddess of all gods. The sacred tree was her symbol, representing the divine feminine principle of nurturing and creation.
I imagine this must have been quite significant for women's spiritual practices in those times.
Yes, women had a special relationship with these sacred trees. They would often pray, make offerings, and perform rituals near them. This wasn't just about worship, it was about connecting with the divine feminine energy that these trees represented.
It's amazing how these ancient practices have endured. I'm curious, how do you see these traditions being expressed in modern spiritual work?
What's beautiful is how these ancient wisdom traditions have evolved into practical modern applications. One of the most powerful ways we can connect with tree energy today is through aromatherapy, particularly using tree-based essential oils.
That's such an interesting bridge between ancient and modern practices. Could you explain how these oils connect to spiritual work?
Think of trees as spiritual antennas. Their roots reach deep into the earth, while their branches extend toward the sky. They're natural conduits between earth and heaven. When we work with tree oils, we're tapping into that same energy. Each oil has its own unique spiritual properties aligned with different aspects of our energy system.
Could you give us some specific examples?
Of course, frankincense, for instance, is traditionally associated with the crown chakra, our connection to divine wisdom. It's been used in spiritual ceremonies for thousands of years. Then we have cypress, which works beautifully with the root chakra, helping us feel grounded and connected to Earth's energy.
I notice you mentioned chakras. Can you break that down a bit for listeners who might not be familiar with the chakra system?
Think of chakras as energy centers in your body, like spiritual power stations. Each one relates to different aspects of our being. The root chakra at the base of your spine connects you to earth energy. That's why grounding oils like cypress work so well there. The crown chakra at the top of your head connects to spiritual insight, which is why elevated oils like frankincense are perfect for crown chakra work.
That makes it very clear, and I imagine these oils can be used in various ways.
Yes, one of the most powerful practices is sacred anointing, a tradition that goes back to ancient times. You can create your own personal ritual by selecting an oil that resonates with your intention, then applying it to specific energy points on your body while setting your intention.
Could you walk us through a simple sacred anointing practice that our listeners could try at home?
I'd love to. Let's use sandalwood as an example. It's wonderful for meditation and connecting with divine feminine energy. First, find a quiet space where you won't be disturbed. Hold the oil in your hands and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself.
I love how you're starting with that moment of mindfulness.
Yes, that initial connection is so important. Then place a small drop of the oil in your palm and warm it gently. As you do this, set your intention, perhaps connecting with your inner wisdom or seeking guidance. Then, with mindfulness, anoint your third eye area, the space between your eyebrows and the crown of your head.
Are there any safety considerations our listeners should keep in mind?
I'm glad you asked. Always use a carrier oil when applying essential oils to your skin, and make sure you're using high-quality, pure oils. Also, some oils like cedarwood and myrrh are quite potent, So start with small amounts. It's about creating a sacred relationship with these tree essences, not overwhelming yourself.
Speaking of relationships, I'd love to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the divine feminine. How do you see these practices helping people connect with that energy?
The divine feminine is all about receptivity, intuition, and nurturing energy, qualities that trees embody perfectly. When we work with tree oils, we're tapping into that same nurturing, protective energy that our ancestors found in sacred groves.
And this connects beautifully back to Asherah and those ancient traditions we discussed earlier.
Exactly. Whether we're standing beneath a physical tree or working with its essential oil, we're participating in a tradition that stretches back thousands of years. It's about recognizing that the divine feminine isn't just a historical concept, it's a living, breathing presence that we can connect with through these sacred practices.
You know, one thing I find fascinating is how scent can trigger such powerful memories and emotions. How, d- how does this play into spiritual practice with these oils?
That's such an insightful question, Betty. Our sense of smell is directly connected to the limbic system, the emotional center of our brain. When we work with these sacred tree oils, we're actually creating what I call scent memories, powerful emotional and spiritual anchors that we can return to again and again.
Could you give us an example of how you might use this concept in practice?
Let's say you're establishing a daily meditation practice. You might choose to work with cedarwood oil, which has been used in spiritual ceremonies for centuries. Each time you meditate, you apply a small amount of the oil with intention. Over time, just catching that scent will help your mind and spirit shift into that meditative state.
It's like creating a spiritual shortcut through scent.
Exactly. And what's really beautiful is that you're not just creating a personal ritual, you're participating in an ancient tradition. The same scents that we're using today were used in temples and sacred spaces thousands of years ago.
You know, we've talked about individual practice, but I'm curious about community aspects. How do you see these traditions being shared or practiced in groups?
Community practice is so important. Just as our ancestors would gather in sacred groves, modern groups often come together for collective ritual work. I've led ceremonies where we use different tree oils to mark significant moments in the ritual: frankincense for opening sacred space, sandalwood for deep meditation, and myrrh for grounding and closing.
That must create a powerful shared experience.
It really does. There's something magical about a group of people experiencing these sacred scents together. It creates a kind of energetic harmony, much like standing in a grove of trees, each individual connected but part of a greater whole.
For those listening who might be new to all this, what would you suggest as a first step into working with tree oils and connecting with these traditions?
Start simply. Choose one oil that you feel drawn to, perhaps frankincense or sandalwood. Spend time just sitting with the scent, noticing how it affects you. Create a small ritual around it, maybe just anointing your wrists in the morning while setting an intention for the day. It's about building a relationship, both with the oil and with your own spiritual practice.
That's such wonderful practical advice. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your thoughts on why these ancient tree traditions feel so relevant today.
I think in our modern world, where we're often disconnected from nature, these practices offer a way to reconnect with something profound and ancient. Trees remind us of the cycles of life, of patience, of deep rootedness, qualities we desperately need today.
And the oils provide a tangible way to make that connection.
Exactly. They're like a bridge between worlds, connecting us to both the physical essence of these sacred trees and the spiritual wisdom they represent. When we work with these oils mindfully, we're participating in a tradition that stretches back to Asherah and beyond, yet remains perfectly relevant to our modern spiritual needs.
Is there a final piece of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners?
Remember that this work is about relationship with the trees, with their essences, with your own spiritual journey. Don't rush. Let the wisdom unfold naturally, just as a tree grows slowly but surely toward the light.
Beautiful. And where can people learn more about your work with sacred tree traditions and aromatherapy?
I'm proud to have contributed to an anthology honoring Asherah. Published by Girl God Books, Asherah, Roots of the Mother Tree is a rich collection of chapters, essays, poetry, and art. If you are intrigued about her, this book will not disappoint. My contribution, Aromatic Memories of the Sacred Trees, expands on the information I've shared here today. I'll give the link in the show notes.
Thank you so much, DeeAnna, for sharing these beautiful traditions and practical wisdom with us today. To our listeners, remember that whether you're standing beneath a mighty oak or working with a drop of sacred oil, you're connecting with wisdom that has nourished souls for thousands of years.
Thank you, Betty. It's been a joy to share these traditions and practices with our essentially soulful listeners.